headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Thank you for having me on, Mike. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Now, I've just described you as this fabulous woman on Twitter. I've just retweeted that great speech of yours that you know I love so much. But listen, I thought to myself yesterday, who can we talk to about Carrie Antoinette and all the stories that have been written about her? You know, people are arguing. Piers Morgan says it's sexist to attack her. Sarah Vine couldn't seem to make up her mind yesterday and said it was sexist to attack her, then attacked her. Camilla Long in the Sunday Times, another woman's written about how clearly all of Boris Johnson's problems stem from Carrie, you know, from the wallpaper, you know, to COP26 to, you know, the problem with the parties and the cake and everything else that and the friends that she surrounded herself with. I mean, is it unfair to be having a go at her?
Well, one thing is for sure and needs to be made very clear. It is not sexist or misogynistic to criticise women, and we're on a very dangerous path if that's where we're going. I mean, I criticise women. Look at how, you know, we spoke about Theresa May. We criticised her on her terrible actions. We didn't criticise her for being a woman, but it was on her actions, and women need to be held to the same level of account as men are. They need to be scrutinised in the same way men are. That is what feminism is all about.
Yeah.
We are equals in in most ways, in every way, in terms of the things we do and the things we say, all the good bits and being accountable for our actions. Now, it is not sexist to point out there are certain allegations to Carrie that I don't know if there's evidence or not for them yet, but they are serious allegations. And if she has overreached her position, if she has used or abused her position to peddle her own political agenda in a way that other spouses haven't done before, it's absolutely right that the public are concerned about that. And very important as well that she doesn't get ring-fenced from criticism because she is of right think. You know, she has very BBC-approved views on green issues and on trans issues at the moment. So you'll find the people screaming misogyny at the moment would be very quiet if Carrie had been using her position to push Boris more to the right, you know, of centre.
Yes, that's a very good point. I mean, of course, most of the accusations about misogyny are coming from inside of Downing Street. You know, it's her sort of sources close to the Prime Minister saying that this book by Lord Ashcroft is really absolutely shocking. It's dirt dishing. It's absolutely scandalous what they're writing, absolute rubbish about her. You know, well, I'm sorry. I really don't believe that any bloke, particularly a bloke like Boris Johnson, decides to walk into Downing Street and first thing he looks at is the decorating and goes, do you know what? This place could do with a redecoration. I just don't see it. So I think that's definitely down to her. I don't see how it could be anybody else.
Well, look, I think that there have certainly been spouses over the years that have, you know, maybe played with expenses a little bit. But I think there is a line, though, I would draw. I would say it was sexist to blame Carrie for Boris's bad decision-making. That is where some of them have a point. Because, of course, Boris, before he was PM, before he got married to Carrie, was a woke green nutnuts as London mayor. Right. Boris bikes and low-carbon emission and going around on his bicycle. He was all into that. Secondly, as mayor, he wanted to grant all the illegal immigrants in London amnesty. He has always been super liberal on illegal immigration like that. And to blame Carrie for all of this, that is sexist because that is not fair. Also, he's a big boy. He should take, you know, the buck ends with him. If he took down the wall of professionalism with his wife and allowed her access to his phone or this, that and the other, really that's on him. So in that way, I do put the blame at Boris's feet. But criticising Carrie, go for it. Why not?
Yeah.
I got criticised all the time, and sometimes I deserved it, sometimes I didn't. That's part of the game.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want, as you said, you wouldn't want to be treated differently to, say, Nigel Farage just because you were a woman, would you?
Oh, I'd be horrified. I'd be insulted. I think infantilizing women all the time is terrible for our girls. This is another thing. You know, we do tell our children, if you're told to jump off a cliff, you know, don't jump off a cliff. The actions lie with you. Take responsibility for your own decisions. And I hope Boris isn't sort of outsourcing blame, or at least his fans aren't outsourcing his blame that should be firmly at his feet onto his wife. That's wrong. But my God, what's wrong with criticism, especially in politics? And Carrie If
And
she
people
did,
say, but is it different though as well? Because of course you were actually elected to the job that you were doing in Brussels, whereas she's not elected. So technically speaking, she is Boris's wife. But I'm sure she doesn't want to be known for the rest of time as the wife of the Prime Minister. I mean, she had a perfectly decent career of her own. She was running the press unit for the Conservative Party when she was only about 26, 27 years of age. And she seems to have been working for people like John Whittingdale and I think Dominic Raab maybe as well, Sajid Javid, as a sort of as a special advisor. I mean, I've got my own views about people in their 20s being special advisors for anything because I don't think they should be, but that's just my ageism coming out. But, you know, she's only his wife, technically speaking, is what the critics are saying, and, you know, that's why it's not fair to criticise her.
well, I think it's the first time a prime minister has married a fierce political activist. I think constantly comparing her to Sherry Blair and to all the other spouses are PMs is just not fair because, you know, Carrie, the last sort of 10 years of her life have been political activism. And, you know, the Queen Elizabeth I stayed a virgin queen because she was worried about marrying someone who would dominate and control her policies. And I'm not saying Boris should have never got married, but
Well, I tell you what, he'd have been a lot better off financially.
Yeah, and certainly not a virgin queen, but to have chosen a wife who is a fierce political activist, it really was up to him to make the boundary very clear between his professional life and his private life with Carrie.
It does seem extraordinary, doesn't it, that he has found himself in this place after getting elected in 2019. There was that huge kind of rush of blood, rush of adrenaline that we all felt that night on January the 31st, 2020. And it's all kind of dissipated. And I'm sorry, I blame him for all of that. Yeah, you know, I'm not saying that therefore we should be blaming her for influencing, but I don't think she's helped him. And I think, you know, it's beginning to look as though she, and somebody said this to me the other day, is destroying the Conservative Party the same way that Jeremy Corbyn killed off the Labour Party.
Well, I think the Conservative Party destroyed itself when it refused to deliver the Brexit vote, and the Brexit Party had to reform the Conservative Party in its image to survive.
Yes.
So I think,
well, there's no question that without Nigel Farage, we would still be in the European Union. No question.
Well, and I think the Conservative Party would be finished as well.
Yeah.
So the infighting over Brexit and Remain helped destroy it. I think putting the blame at Carrie's feet is a bit much. I think there are lots of Remainers in the Conservative Party that would be happy to see Boris's downfall. However, if he does fall from grace, I do think it will be interesting to see what part Carrie played in influencing certain things around him to make him so unrecognisable from the man in 2019, the people's hero, the man that held the electorate in the palm of his hand and just squandered it and neglected his voters. And yes, let's explore how she may have played a part in veering him away from representing his voters, but to blame her for his decisions, no, I think that's wrong.
That's the point, though, isn't it? Because she's also accused of surrounding him with all of her mates, you know, like the Zach Goldsmiths of this world, the guy Henry Newman, who we used to entertain down on the Tent of Shame when he was in between jobs, when he was in between working for Michael Gove and now working for Boris Johnson. You know, he's surrounded by all of her friends, and people have been writing that he cuts a kind of ever more dramatic and sort of lonely figure. And because, I mean, you can't marry somebody a lot younger than you and hang out with all their mates. It's just not. It just doesn't make any sense in the end.
It does feel a bit like Carrie has BBC-ified Boris.
Yes.
Made him more presentable, sorted out, you know, weight loss, nicer hair, and again, there are lots of great things a spouse can do and support. And I'm sure Carrie's a great support to Boris, and she's a wonderful person. But she made a big mistake if she thought making Boris into a BBC-approved metropolitan elite type would do him any good in the polls whatsoever. I mean, it's the worst thing that could have happened. Boris won because he was anti-metropolitan elite. Because everyone thought he had the backbone to flick the bird to all the people who had been squashing, the working class and the people who voted Brexit for years. But he turned. It's almost like he turned on us, and people are heartbroken. Yeah. He didn't use the majority to make bold decision-making, just be fierce against the Metropolitan League. Instead, he turned into one. And whether Carrie had a part to play in that, I'm sure we'll find out.
And a lot of people say that we should not get rid of Boris Johnson because what might come next will be a lot worse. Are you one of those, do you think?
I have to say, I have to balance it up. If the Boris we have for the next year is on his knees, desperately trying anything he can to get the Red Wall back, to fight for his career, and to prove that, you know, he really has got our back. Perhaps him working towards that would be better than one of the old Tory types who are completely disconnected from the Red Wall and from Brexit voters. I don't know. I like a flawed man. You know, the heroes of democracy.
I said I've met your husband. I think that's very unfair.
Well, think about Nigel, Boris. They're all flawed men. People would have loved Boris even if he, you know, came to work naked and did all sorts of things behind closed doors. People have still loved him if he remained the people's hero. But he chose to transform into this metropolitan chattering class.
Yes. It's interesting. Also, the thing that people loved about him was that, one, he wanted to get out of the European Union, which has kind of happened, perhaps not as much as he would have liked, but yes, it's better than it was. But all the other things that he said he was going to do, you know, he was going to make our energy bills cheaper. I mean, he actually said that, and that doesn't seem to have quite worked out. He was going to stop the flood of migrants coming onto our beaches, and that's got massively worse rather than better. And every single time they promise to do something about it, nothing ever happens. And now it turns out we're paying £5 million a day just to put them up in hotels, and that's just a bit of the money that we're spending, you know. And so I say that the people who will desert him eventually at the next election will do so not because of the parties, but just because of the perception that he hasn't really done what he said he would do.
I don't think it's COVID at all. I think people were very forgiving over his COVID mistakes and would have continued to forgive him had he stayed loyal to his voters. The telltale sign for me was when 1 month he said, we will send all the illegal immigrants back. And then a few months later he said, oh, we can't do anything, sorry, the French won't let us.
Yeah.
And kind of, I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, he's literally said he can't control our borders.
Yeah.
Promise. This is a man who's defeatist and he doesn't have the political will to make the tough decisions and remove us from these outdated treaties that are chaining us to this mass illegal immigration chaos that we face. And he just doesn't have the backbone for it. Now, if it suddenly appears, Mike, and he suddenly takes that, the voters with him, then yes, I would rather that than a polished, unflawed Tory MP to take his place. But who knows?
But I'm not sure you can find one of those anyway, because I'm not sure any of them are polished and unflawed. But I mean, here's the other thing as well, that basically what we have here is a situation where we're now no longer in control of very much. You know, we're more or less now admitting in Cabinet that we can't control the price of energy. There's nothing we can do apart from lend people a few quid in October and ask them if they'd like a council tax rebate of £12 a month. And you're kind of going, really? Is that the best of it? Is that the best you can do? We can't control the price of anything because inflation has taken over. We can't make the Bank of England do anything because we've given that away. I mean, we've got a police force that can't arrest anyone, an NHS that can't treat anyone. I mean, what's going on?
Well, and the other thing is he's allowed this woke indoctrination and politicisation of the police and NHS and schools under his watch get so much worse because he doesn't think it really matters to people. Listen, we gave him Brexit as a gift, and that allowed him the opportunity to reduce taxes and VAT, and he hasn't taken that opportunity, and that's what frustrates a lot of Brexit voters. You know, we gave him this gift and he's not using it to the full potential. He's been weak with the EU. Listen, he's far better than Labour, of course, thank God.
Well, nobody wants to see Labour in charge. I mean, people make the mistake that I'm critical of Boris Johnson because I want to see Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. Not on your Nelly.
I know, but the problem is it will be Boris's fault if Labour get into power with a coalition with the SNP and Lib Dems. It will be on him because he had every opportunity to take us with him. I don't know why he didn't take us with him in his premiership. He kind of left it behind. And whether Carrie was the reason for that or not, I haven't seen firm evidence yet to suggest she is. So I think we should wait to get the evidence. But also it's really on him that he was so weak, he allowed to be influenced so heavily by his wife. I mean, thank God I'm not blamed, though, for my husband's decisions or my...
Well, you know, people might now blame you for my decisions, though. They might say that you're an undue influence on me and that you should stop it. Absolutely. But what I've got for you here, here's a gift to you. This is coming in from Peter, who says there's a new vocabulary required, carry wokey. Singing to the tune of Carrie Johnson. I like it.
I love that. Although I have to say Boris was pretty woke before.
Yes, he was. Now, when are you taking me out to influence me some more?
As soon as possible, Mike. You are my best company out at night. Let's go and grab a cigar somewhere, can't
we must.
Good talk. Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio. Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV. The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk radio.